These are the rules for what we call dimensional analysis. We learned this in section 3.3, and it's the basis for a lot of what we do in chapter 10, 11, and 12. So if you haven't, write down these 7 rules so you'll have them every time you come to class. I'm also going to do one problem, so it would help to write down this example problem along with the rules. And of course, anytime you need to pause this, you can hit pause. Alright, so my first rule is I need to write the given. Actually, my first thing I need to do is write the problem. So my example problem here is, let's say, okay, so this is a conversion problem. I have 3 days and I want to convert it to seconds. Alright, so step number 1 says write the given. Now my given is my value, my number that I have, and it's important that you write not only the number, but the units, because the units tell you what comes next. Step number 2, I want to multiply my given by some fraction. So I'm just going to make a fraction more. Step number 3, I want to match the units on the top, days, to those on the bottom. So I'm just going to transfer this. I'm going to rewrite it days here. Now I'm doing that, as we'll see, because that way I can cancel. Because mathematically, anything that's in the numerator and the denominator cancels out. It equals 1. Now notice I don't transfer this number down here. Never ever, this number never ever goes down there. I'm going to put in the numbers later. Okay, so next I want to figure out what goes on top. So rule number 4 says put a unit on top that is related to the one on the bottom. Now I have to use a little bit of logic here, and I have to figure out, well, what's related to days that will help me get to my answer of seconds. I'm trying to get to seconds. I want to convert days to something. I can't convert days to seconds. I don't know that ratio. But I can go from days to hours. Because I have a big unit here, and I want to get to a smaller unit here. Days to hours is going in that direction. Now that I know where I'm going from, converting from days, and I'm converting to hours, now I can fill in the numbers here that make sense. And step number 5 says that. Fill in the numbers that make the top have the same values as the bottom. So I know there's 24 hours in a day. So the same value, meaning that 24 hours one day, these two things are equal to each other. This fraction, a conversion factor, always has to equal 1. The top and the bottom have to be equivalent. 24 hours, one day, those two things are synonymous. They're interchangeable. Rule number 6, cross off like units. So the whole reason I did this is because I want to get out of days. So since I have days on top and days on the bottom, that mathematically means I can cross them off, because anything over itself equals 1. So now I'm in units of hours, and if I wanted to, I could multiply 3 times 24, I'd get 72 hours. So I know that 3 days equals 72 hours. But the question's not asking for hours, of course, it's asking for seconds. Well, rule number 7 says, repeat until your end unit is what you are looking for. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to repeat. Well, let me scroll back to, well, rule number 1, I already wrote the given. It's 24 hours, it's right there. So now I need to multiply by another fraction. Okay, and rule number 3, match the units on top to those on the bottom. So I take my hours and I put it down here. And I only match the units, never the numbers. Okay, number 4, put a unit on top that is related to one on the bottom. So I'm in hours, and I'm trying to get to smaller units, seconds, but I can't go directly from hours to seconds, but I can go from hours to minutes. And once I have my ratio, my units, then step number 5 says fill in the numbers. So there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. And again, this ratio has to equal 1. The thing on top has to be equivalent to the thing on the bottom. Rule number 6 says cross off like units. So I have hours and hours. Those are gone. And rule number 7 says repeat until we're where we want to be. Well, I want to be in seconds, but I'm in minutes. So I got to do another one. So I'm going to go back to rule number 1. Write the given. It's written. Rule number 2, multiply by a fraction. Rule number 3, match the top units with the bottom units. I have minutes up here. I'll put minutes down here. Step 4, put a unit on top that is related. Well, I'm in minutes. I want to get to seconds. I can definitely convert minutes to seconds. Step number 5, fill in the numbers. That make it make sense. Well, there's 60 seconds in a minute. Cross off like units. Minutes, minutes. And repeat until we're where we want to be. Well, I see by crossing all of these off, my units that are left are seconds. The question says how many seconds, so I have the right units. So I'm done. Although, of course, one more step. I want to multiply my numbers. And I left off my 24. And I could put that in my calculator and get my answer. So whenever you do these, a couple of checks when you're finished. Make sure the units match. Days to days, hours to hours, minutes to minutes. You'll see they're color coordinated. Make sure your ending unit is what they're asking for. You didn't go too far, or you didn't go far enough. Make sure you're where you should be. Check each ratio. Make sure the top and the bottom are equivalent. 24 hours in 1 day. A common mistake is to mix these numbers up and put 1 hour and 24 days. Ask yourself if it makes sense. So are there 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute? And again, notice this 3 never gets repeated. Each number is related to the one above it. 1 day, 24 hours. And that's dimensional analysis.